SVA.
Perfect. Great. Well, welcome everyone to the Break Exchange webinar series. I'm Kim Whitmore. I am one of the co-founders of the Break Exchange, and I'm just going to take a minute to just talk a little bit about the Break Exchange for those of you who may be new to the group, and then I'm going to pass it on to our guest speakers today. So the Break Exchange is an international group of researchers, respite providers, agencies, and really any individual that is committed to helping to build a culture of evidence-based respite care. It was co-founded by a great collaboration of several partner organizations, the Arch National Respite Network and Resource Center here in the US, the Shared Care Scotland, the School of Nursing at UW-Madison, where I am a faculty member, as well as the International Short Break Association, or ISBA. And can't mention ISBA without just a reminder and a plug about our upcoming conference that was originally planned to be hosted in Wisconsin in the US in June. We did just make an announcement that we are moving that virtual due to the ongoing concerns about the pandemic. So welcome your engagement in that conference. It's going to be a great virtual conference, and looking forward to learning and sharing about all the incredible respite services that are happening globally. And then for those of you who are new or unfamiliar with the Break Exchange, I just want to take a minute to talk a little bit about some of the benefits of being a part of the Break Exchange. This is a great opportunity to connect with a global network of individuals. We currently have over 130 members from more than 13 countries that are a part of the Break Exchange. This is a great place to learn about what's happening in best practice and research around the world, as well as share your own work. So we invite you to share projects and initiatives that you're working on through our webinars like we have today, also our e-newsletter and our different website and social media platforms. And then one of the most exciting benefits of being a part of the Break Exchange is the opportunity to use the Break Exchange to connect and collaborate with individuals. We are really trying to get people to link to each other. And so we have created a member profile that you can add your information to our searchable database, and that allows people to find you and find others who have similar interests that might be willing to connect on an evaluation or a research project. So if you haven't already joined the Break Exchange or completed your member profile, we encourage you to do so. And this slide just shows some of the ways that you can get connected to the Break Exchange if you're not already. So we have both a Facebook page and a group for ongoing discussion, Twitter, Instagram. We have our website where you can join our email list and complete that member profile, and you can always email us at any time as well. So that's just a very brief overview of the Break Exchange, but I don't want to take up too much more time. I want to make sure that we can transition this over to our excellent speakers today, and I want to welcome Diane and Maria and let them share a little bit more about who they are and what they're going to talk about today. So I will pass it on to you, and thank you so much for joining today.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Diane Seddon, and I'm the social care research lead. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, sorry, I have to on mute. So I'm Diane Seddon, and I'm the social care research lead for the Wales Centre for Ageing and Dementia Research, based in the UK. I'm also a member of the Welsh Government's Ministerial Advisory Group on Carers, and I'm involved in a UK-wide short breaks research and practice development group. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Maria. Maria, if you'd like to just briefly introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, my name's Maria and I'm a second year PhD student at Bangor University, and I'll be talking to you today about some research that we've recently completed around some of the challenges and opportunities in providing personalised and meaningful breaks for carers and their partner living with dementia.
Okay, thank you, Maria. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now and hope that this works. Okay, just bear with me 1 second.
Okay, and if you just go up to the slideshow and hit start.
Yeah, it's not actually doing that. Just 1 second, because if I go to slideshow, oh right, it is now. Yeah, thank you.
There you go. Great.
Yeah. Okay. So I hope you can all see that. Okay, so I'd like to begin by thanking you for the opportunity to share some examples of short breaks research completed here in the UK. Myself and colleagues are really keen to develop international collaborations and opportunities for knowledge exchange that support research and practice development in the area of short breaks. As I'm sure you're all aware, research highlights the importance of short breaks for carers, traditionally called respite care, and it captures the positive difference that breaks can make carers' everyday lives, including to their physical health, their emotional well-being, and their sense of resilience. Now, whilst there's been a good deal of research in recent years about carers and caregiving, and indeed short breaks provision, our understanding of what makes for a successful, meaningful break and how access to breaks can help support positive, sustainable caring relationships is still quite limited. So if we're to explore these issues further and inform future policy and practice development, we need to build a clearer picture of what we know already and, crucially, highlight where new research is needed. So with this in mind, today's webinar will present findings from a recent scoping review that mapped the evidence base supporting breaks for carers for older people, with a particular focus on identifying and prioritising future research and practice development opportunities. My colleague Maria will then share some findings from an ongoing 3-year study funded by Welsh Government that explores the key factors shaping breaks provision in a region of the UK. In her presentation, Maria will focus on some of the challenges associated with planning, commissioning and delivering breaks provision for spousal carers supporting a partner who's living with dementia. But before we discuss these two pieces of work, I think it's important to take a moment to reflect on the terminology. In the research, policy and practice literature, the terms used to describe breaks provision is quite varied. It includes respite care, short break, restorative, replacement and relief care. The most common terms are short breaks and respite care. And although these terms are sometimes used interchangeably, increasingly distinctions are being made. In the literature, respite is usually associated with traditional services, typically involving a person with complex needs being supported in settings outside of the home, such as an adult daycare facility or in a residential respite care facility. There's an implicit assumption that respite involves a pause from something that is challenging or unpleasant, even though we know that there can be positive aspects to caring. While traditional forms of respite can be beneficial for carers, and indeed they do have their place and they can provide much needed and valued break experiences, it's the bespoke short break options that have developed in the UK and in other countries in recent years that form the basis of this presentation. Increasingly, research suggests that the concept of a short break is more acceptable to carers. The term short break is associated with the advent of more bespoke, outcome-led approaches to achieving those things that matter most to carers and those they support. A key distinction between respite and short break is that the term short break has broader connotations than temporary relief from the caring role, and it reflects the drive to improve quality of life for both the carer and the person they care for, potentially including a break from routine together. Now, there is no universally accepted definition of short break in either the research, policy or practice literature, and Shared Care Scotland's short break definition underpinned our scoping work. And you'll see from this broad definition that breaks can take various forms and can include breaks taken together or apart, taken at home or away from the home. But crucially, short breaks are characterised by time away from everyday caring routines and responsibilities, and are intended to support positive caring relationships, support the health and well-being of carers and those they care for, as well as others who may be affected by the caring situation, such as the wider family. So to the scoping review, which was undertaken to help us understand what research tells us about the impact of short breaks for carers, and to inform the development of an outcome-focused research agenda to support future research development work. So the review located research evidencing the contribution of short breaks to achieving a number of carer-generated outcomes, i.e. changes or benefits for carers following a short break. We were particularly interested in outcomes relating to carer health and well-being, a life of their own, positive relationships with the supported person, choices in caring, including limitations to the caring role, and satisfaction in caring. So to achieve this, we searched the national and international literature on short breaks for carers, and we included English language publications from 2000 onwards. So for the purposes of the scoping review, a carer was classified as anyone who cares unpaid for a family or friend due to illness, disability, a mental health problem, or an addiction who cannot cope without their support. Now, our initial search included a broad range of carer groups, but following first screening and as the high volume of literature became apparent, we focused the review on carers supporting older adults aged 60, including those living with dementia. We know that old age and dementia are the most frequent reasons for caring, and that older carers play a critical role in supporting individuals with care needs, including their spouse. So, having scoped the literature, what did we find? Well, various breaks are described in the literature, including daycare, residential respite care, and in-home respite care, along with breaks that are provided by host family support arrangements, supported holidays, and access to leisure and arts facilities. However, most studies evaluating the outcomes of breaks for carers focus on traditional residential day and respite care services rather than the bespoke short break options that have developed in recent years. Rigorous research exploring what makes these breaks meaningful and understanding their impact is really very limited. Where bespoke short break options are reported, they're mainly in descriptive accounts of provision that's framed as innovative practice, or they are highlighted in service evaluation work and is published in the grey literature. There's a real lack of academic research evidence documenting the experiences of carers, the individuals with complex needs who they support, organisations involved in delivering short break services, and also those who commission services. Importantly, the limited evidence base does not reflect the heterogeneity of the carer population. Carers underrepresented in the short breaks literature include those from Black and minority ethnic groups, carers from lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender communities, and also carers living in remote rural areas where the commissioning and delivery of breaks provision may be particularly challenging. We found that research focuses predominantly on the health outcomes arising from day and residential respite care breaks. And as I'm sure you're all aware, it reports on positive outcomes for some carers for their physical well-being, emotional well-being, and their sense of resilience. However, positive outcomes can be tempered by feelings of guilt and anxiety, as well as sadness of being separated from the person they care for. But evidence suggests that these can be mitigated when carers are supported by family, friends, and professionals who accept their need for a break as legitimate and are able to appreciate its preventative effects. There is some research suggesting that personalised short breaks can help carers to achieve positive health outcomes. For example, an evaluation of the Creative Breaks programme in Scotland reports on improvements in carers' emotional health. Similarly, a study completed by Wills and Fink Heights reports improvements in carers' physical health following a supported holiday taken together with their spouse who is living with dementia. Dementia Adventure also report on the benefits of supporting carers and people living with dementia to get outdoors, to take positive risks and to try new things. However, it is fair to say that the evidence base is too limited to draw any firm conclusions about the contribution of these types of short breaks to realising positive health and wellbeing outcomes, and if realised, whether these health outcomes can be sustained over time. So aside from the Wills and Fink Heights work on supported holidays for spousal carers and their partners, we found no published academic research longitudinal in design following carers at specified points after their personalised bespoke short break to explore the medium and longer term health and wellbeing outcomes and what matters in shaping these outcomes over time. So there are a number of key evidence gaps, including the timing of breaks as a preventative health measure over the caring career, how short break needs change over time, for example, changes in the optimal break length and break type to realise positive health outcomes. There's also a lack of comparative work addressing the short, medium and longer term health outcomes from different break types. For example, residential respite, where a break typically involves separation, compared with, say, a supported holiday typically taken together. Also, little is known about how breaks can combine with other interventions to achieve health and wellbeing outcomes, including, for example, combining short breaks with training or learning relaxation or sleep management techniques. Whilst the Wills and Fink Heights work included psychoeducational group sessions in their supported holiday, I think it's fair to say that the research evidence base is scarce. Research highlights the ways that breaks can support a life alongside caring. This includes breaks afforded by daycare services, as well as bespoke short break options where families are helped to arrange personalised breaks that are tailored to their unique circumstances. Both break types can afford carers space to pursue personal interests, space to temporarily disconnect from the caring role, to focus on other roles such as being a mother, a son, a friend, and also space to reconnect with other people. For carers, satisfactory use of short break time and consistency in engaging with preferred restorative activities is important and has a significant effect on carer outcomes. However, there remain a number of key evidence gaps. So whilst promoting a life alongside caring is a priority in UK social care policy and in other countries such as Sweden and Australia, research looking at the role short breaks play in supporting a life alongside caring is limited and it is narrow in focus. For example, it fails to capture the complexity of people's caring responsibilities and arrangements. For individuals who have multiple caring roles, time away from one role may be occupied by other caring commitments, but this is not adequately reflected in the short breaks literature. And this is a significant omission if we look at recent work undertaken by Carers UK in 2019. It highlights the number of individuals with multiple caring roles has increased and is projected to rise further. This includes those typically referred to as sandwich carers because of their dual roles, caring for ageing parents and young children. Hence, we must ensure that future research captures the short break needs of these carers, that what matters to these carers is established, and that the outcomes arising from their short breaks are better understood. Now, we notice that in the literature, a life alongside caring is defined in very narrow terms and is associated with opportunities for carers to pursue hobbies and maintain friendships. And this also holds true in UK policy literature. There's a dearth of research looking at the role and contribution of short breaks in supporting other aspects of life alongside caring. For example, enabling carers to enter, retain, or re-engage with employment, or complete educational or training programs. So there's considerable scope for research development in this area. So moving on to the impact of breaks on caring relationships, our scoping work confirms that day and residential respite provision can support positive caring relationships by affording much needed space that enables some carers to positively frame the caring relationship, the caring role, and their significant caring achievements. There's also some grey literature suggesting that bespoke short breaks may support improvements in dementia caring relationships. For example, an evaluation of the Shared Lives Scheme in England by Bell and Litherland, and an evaluation of the Time to Live strand of the Creative Breaks programme in Scotland. However, we identified very limited academic research exploring how personalised bespoke breaks can support caring relationships, including relationship stability over time. We know that caring relationships are complex, they're dynamic, and they're often reciprocal in nature. However, short breaks research fails to capture the complexity of caring relationships and support networks. Mostly, it's predicated on the assumption that an individual occupies a caring role who's related by blood, marriage, or adoption to the person they support. This does not reflect the increasingly diverse range of contemporary caring arrangements and support networks. For example, friends and neighbours can play a key role in caring for people. Likewise, individuals living at a distance can provide much needed support to enable people to stay in their own homes. Distance carers, we know, often combine multiple caring responsibilities for different generations of their family whilst in paid employment, but research has not addressed the short break needs of these carers. In relation to choices in caring, some research suggests that breaks, both traditional type respite care and also short break, bespoke short break options, can influence carer choices, support continued caring, and delay admission to nursing or residential care. And this includes work completed in Scotland by the Dundee Carers Centre. However, the evidence base is insufficient to draw firm conclusions. Presently, there's limited research exploring how bespoke short breaks might impact on carer choices and decisions, including decisions about limits to the caring role. Key research gaps include understanding the way that these short breaks can influence carer willingness to continue caring, influence carer ability to continue caring, impact on carer confidence in the caring role, and also carer's sense of self-efficacy. In relation to carer satisfaction, research suggests that short breaks may contribute to satisfaction if they offer some type of educational experience and opportunities to learn from other carers and for peer support. Also, carer satisfaction may be derived from connecting with a life outside of caring and nurturing other identities. Although carer satisfaction is known to be associated with carer resilience and sustained involvement in the caring role, it's really difficult to draw any firm conclusions about the impact of bespoke short breaks on carer satisfaction, as very few studies have addressed this, and clearly it is an important area for future research and development. Going forward, I think there are really exciting opportunities to co-create and deliver short breaks that are underpinned by a robust research evidence base. And having scoped the literature, it's quite clear that a future research and practice development agenda may be usefully clustered around 3 priority lines of inquiry, namely understanding what matters, capturing what matters, and commissioning and delivering short breaks that reflect what matters. So I'd just like to think briefly about each of these 3 lines of inquiry. So understanding what matters to carers and those they support is key for impactful research that informs future policy and practice development. For example, research exploring how individuals can be supported to identify their short break needs, understand the break outcomes that matter most to them and are most meaningful to them, and recognise and accept their short break needs as legitimate. Research is also needed to understand the key aspects of the caring experience that shape short break needs and preferences, as well as the defining features of impactful short breaks. Health and social care practitioners are important stakeholders. They help individuals to identify their break needs and are essential to co-creating a future service vision. So researching, assessment and support planning processes and exploring their effectiveness in identifying, capturing and evidencing short breaks needs is really essential. This work may sit within a wider programme of research around assessment and support planning as co-produced conversations to explore what works and what supports individuals to achieve positive wellbeing outcomes. Evidence about outcome-focused assessments and support planning in the UK provides a starting point to frame future research. Ideally, planning with carers should start with a conversation about what matters to them, what outcomes they would like to achieve or maintain, and involve collaborative conversations to identify creative means of progressing those outcomes. And I'm sure you're aware that a range of tools and resources are available to support such approaches, such as the Carers Outcome Agreement tool. Moving on to the second line of inquiry, capturing and evaluating outcomes presents challenges, not least appreciating the myriad of factors that shape outcomes for carers. Capturing health and wellbeing outcomes resulting from a short break is important, as carers often identify a concern to maintain their own health in order to be able to continue caring. However, going forward, research must consider a broader range of wellbeing outcomes, not only for carers, but for the individuals they support and their families. When capturing outcomes and the factors shaping these, researchers need to consider a number of things. Firstly, the different break types and how they influence wellbeing, including breaks taken together and breaks taken apart, breaks taken in or away from the home, and breaks offering opportunities for peer support. In the light of COVID-19, capturing breaks delivered via online resources and also breaks in the outdoors really do take on new significance. It's also important for research to explore the optimal short break length and type and how this might change over time, as well as carers' use of break time and how this influences outcomes and how positive outcomes can be sustained over time. Finally, meaningful breaks rely on quality commissioning. Key to future research connecting academia, policy and practice are studies addressing ways to effectively commission and deliver personalised, meaningful breaks at scale. Evidence gaps currently include research looking at the evolving role of commissioners as facilitators of change, bringing together providers, people with complex care and support needs, and carers to shape future provision. Another key gap is research exploring the range of providers, including social enterprise services, arts facilities, hospitality, and tourism, as well as research looking at the different means that offer flexibility and choice, including social prescribing, social enterprises, community-based groups, direct payments, and self-directed support. These are key to addressing the challenges of delivering personalised, meaningful breaks to a diverse population in the context of rising demand and declining budgets. As a first step to taking forward work in the UK and beyond, we've established a group to champion research and practice development activity on meaningful short breaks. The group's work is guided by two main aims. Firstly, to engage in research development activities that support research excellence in the area of short breaks. And then secondly, to encourage knowledge exchange between researchers, policymakers and practitioners in ways that support innovations in future breaks provision. So we're a small group, but we comprise of academic and practice partners whose vision is to engage in research that supports the effective implementation of policy and practice commitments to carers. And the group's work is underpinned by long-term and continuing work in Scotland and Wales on carers that spans a period now of almost 30 years. You'll find further details about the group on our website, so if you'd like to explore collaborative research ideas, then we would be delighted to hear from you. Before I hand over to my colleague Maria, I just wanted to flag up a new 2-year study addressing some of the evidence gaps that were identified in the scoping work. So researchers at Bangor and their practice-based partners, Person-Shaped Support and Shared Lives, have secured funding for a 2-year study to explore an alternative to day centre support for people living with dementia and their families in North Wales. The study aims to understand how beneficial personalised short breaks can be and what elements of these breaks are important. The study will explore a community-based service called TRIO, provided by Person-Shaped Support UK Limited. Implementing the Shared Lives model, people living with dementia are matched with others who share similar interests, and they regularly spend time together in the home of a TRIO companion who provides meaningful activities in the local community. The model is based on building genuine relationships between people and keeping people connected with their local community. The studies will be using an economic analysis, so we will be completing a social return on investment. And this will enable the research team to evaluate the added social value created, considering the value to people's lives from their own perspectives. It's hoped that findings from this research will inform the work of professionals involved in commissioning and delivering breaks provision. It will also help establish the utility of a social return on investment analysis as a method to evaluate community-based short break models of support. And I think it provides a really excellent opportunity for ageing and dementia researchers to work alongside health economists. So finally, should any of you wish to download the scoping review report, you can do so by following the link on this slide. But I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Maria, who's going to present some findings from her ongoing research that goes some way to addressing one of the 3 priority lines of inquiry, namely the commissioning and delivery of short breaks provision. So thank you. Over to you, Maria.
Diane, I just want to interrupt a second. Do you want to take any questions now, or do you want to wait till the end to take questions?
Maybe we'll wait till the end.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Diane.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Diane. Okay, I'll just share my screen. Okay, so can everyone see my full screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, brilliant. So thank you very much, Diane. And I'm going to follow on from Diane's presentation by talking about some research which we've recently completed, which documents some of the challenges and opportunities involved in the provision of more personalised and meaningful breaks for carers and their partner living with dementia. And this research is funded by the Wales School for Social Care Research on behalf of the Welsh Government. So as highlighted by Diane in her presentation, there is still more to learn about the needs for and the impact and effective delivery of more personalised breaks that reflect meaningful outcomes. And identified through the short break scoping review work, an area of research priority relates to the evolution of planning and commissioning arrangements necessary to deliver more effective and personalised breaks for carers. And in light of this knowledge gap, our study aimed to capture a range of strategic and operational perspectives involved in the planning, commissioning and delivery of breaks for spousal carers and their partner living with dementia. This study was conducted in a region in Wales, and data collection finished at the start of this year, so it was before the introduction of any COVID-related restrictions. And out of the 26 staff who participated in interviews, 17 were employed by a local authority. And in the UK, a local authority is the statutory body with lead responsibility for the provision of social care and support in the community. And 9 staff were employed by a third sector carers charity. So I want to say just a little bit about the legislative context in Wales, as I feel this will help frame some of the findings. Across all UK regions, breaks are commissioned within a specific policy and legislative context. And in Wales, the Social Service and Wellbeing Act, which I'll refer to as the Act, is the most current legislation for people with care and support needs and for carers who need support. And the Act established important new rights for carers, including their right to a carer's needs assessment. And this assessment, among other things, explores their willingness to care and the extent to which they want to care, but is also considered the primary route to access statutory breaks provision. The Act also provided for regional partnership boards across Wales, and these boards bring together statutory bodies, so your local authorities and the local health board, the National Health Service, and third and independent sectors. And the aim of these boards is to drive regional collaboration and also to test and develop alternative models of delivering more sustainable care and support to the community. The board's activities are supported by the Integrated Care Fund, so the ICF, and carers are a priority area for this fund. And in part, the fund should be used to support carers across the region to have fair and equal access to breaks. So based on the interview work, our findings supported a model of the short break landscape. And this model represents some core processes, contexts, and contingencies involved in the provision of more meaningful breaks across the region. So I'll explain the model from the centre and sort of work outwards. So at the core of the model is the carer and their partner living with dementia. And this core process represents some of the interdependencies that can exist between the couple and also acknowledges their values and preferences and the stage of caregiving in collectively shaping what a meaningful break looks like to that caring couple. The model also highlights some important context in the shaping of breaks provision. So there is a cultural context which draws attention to some of the carers' morals and their attitudes and their perceptions. And there's also a care and support context which sets out some of the local circumstances that influence the provision of breaks. And next we have 3 interlinked processes, and the extent to which meaningful breaks are realised across the region is contingent on these processes, and I'll talk about them in a little more detail in the following slides. And then at the wider circumference of the model, we have the wider contingencies, and these contingencies represent the extent to which some of the Act's requirements and structures influences local and regional decision making in relation to breaks provision. So the first process, developing equal access to breaks across the region. was contingent firstly on the work of the Regional Partnership Board, and under the board a carers strategy was developed which established the need for more flexible breaks across the region. And there were a few examples of where the ICF fund was used to support collaboration between neighbouring authorities to test a new model of delivering breaks. However, as reflected in the quote provided here, many staff felt there was a lack of impetus to really use the ICF to embed real change in how breaks were planned, commissioned, and even evaluated across the region to improve outcomes for carers. Secondly, many of the carers charities in the region work with several local authorities, and where there was an effective working relationship between the organisations in terms of team working, having clear channels of communication, data sharing agreements, and also commissioning arrangements which reflected the knowledge and resources of charities. Breaks were delivered in a more meaningful and timely way. Building resilient and inclusive communities involves improving the choice and diversity of breaks, and many staff reflected on the need to develop new partnerships with a variety of sectors, including the environment, the arts, hospitality and leisure, to expand the range of break activities available. Then there's the work of local authorities to ensure that carers are connected to relevant information, advice and assistance relating to break entitlement and also local opportunities. And there was appraisal for the work of local authority staff who were embedded within the community, whose role was to identify carers and support them to request carers needs assessment, but also look at where community services or activities may support a break without the reliance on statutory formal provision. And thirdly, many staff articulated the need to support the development of carer-friendly communities, so that creativity in breaks was not restricted by a stigma for caring and also a lack of awareness of carers' needs for support and a break. And understanding what matters in break provision centres on identifying the characteristics that are important for a personalised and meaningful break experience. And through the interviews with staff, several characteristics were regularly referred to, which I've listed here. And these characteristics were reflected in many of the more personalised models of breaks provision that were being piloted across the region. And a few examples include microcare enterprises, care cooperatives, a number of volunteer-led services, and personalised support services. And these type of breaks really tried to offer more flexibility and consistency of a break, and also provide activities that were tailored to the interests of the carer and their partner living with dementia. But I think it's important to stress where traditional service-based models such as daycare centres and care homes still meet the needs and provide a meaningful experience for many carers and their partner living with dementia. Certainly across the region, the care homes which had invested in dementia care staff training and were really trying to provide a more personalised and meaningful engagement for people living with dementia were considered a real asset. So I'll finish by just noting two challenges and opportunities identified through this work. Firstly, a challenge for staff conducting carers' needs assessments was how the Act's cultural change to supporting break needs was communicated. And this cultural change requires exploring where personal assets and also also where family, friends, and community services may contribute in supporting a break. Secondly, a key challenge was around funding cycles, and many staff reflected that short-term funding cycles, so less than 3 years, made it very difficult to invest in more stable and effective partnerships, which could support the sustainability and the scaling up of more promising models of breaks. There's certainly more opportunity for all sectors to continue to meaningfully engage and try and involve carers and where possible their partner living with dementia, and also carers at different stages of caregiving, to involve them in the planning and design of breaks provision. And there are considerable opportunities for research-informed break development. So there is evidence to demonstrate the outcome supported and also the feasibility of new models of break provision. And this evidence is, of course, important for commissioners to steer their decision making and to ensure that there is the right variety of choice and diversity of breaks within the community. We're just finalising a paper which we've written, which will have more details about the findings and the methods and analysis used. So that will be available shortly. And of course, anyone can email me if you have any more questions about the findings. And just to let you know that the next phase of this research will, of course, invite carers and, where possible, people living with dementia to share their experiences of accessing breaks and what makes a break meaningful for them. And this part of the research will start in the new year. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing all the important and exciting work that you guys are engaged in. There's just so much to be learned, and I look forward to opportunities to learn more and connect and partner. I have some questions and comments, but I'm going to hold mine until the end, but want to open it up to the audience here. If there's any questions or comments from anyone that's participating today for either of the speakers. And you can feel free to post those in the chat, or you can unmute and share, and feel free to turn on your cameras if you're comfortable doing it so we can see your faces.
I can see one question in the chat here that says, what strategies have you found helpful in helping carers to understand what matters from a carer's perspective? Certainly, Welsh Government guidance supporting the implementation of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act requires practitioners who are involved in assessment and support planning processes to start with an open-ended what matters conversation, where carers talk about things that matter most to them. And this conversation is about recognising that each caring relationship and set of circumstances is unique, and it must precede any other assessments that happen and must be reflected in care planning processes. So I'm happy to share that. I'm happy to share some of that guidance. I think that might be interesting for colleagues. Also, I don't know if you're aware of the Carers Outcome Agreement tool, and that's being increasingly used by practitioners in the UK. It was developed by Elizabeth Hanson and Mike Nolan based on research with carers both in Sweden and in the UK, and that's also about having a collaborative conversation. It's a tool to facilitate a collaborative conversation with carers to determine what matters to them and what outcomes they would like to see achieved.
That's great, Dan. I think sharing that tool would be wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering, kind of building off that, if you could speak to more globally, how do we like the idea of having these individual conversations and tailoring or personalizing short breaks to the unique situations is absolutely incredible. But from like a global policy system standpoint, how do we do that when, from a funding standpoint, how do we offer that flexibility? And have you found anything that's working in the UK or others who are on the call? How do we do that in a more global context for a larger population of individuals?
Yeah, I guess it's about thinking about some of the more creative break options that are available that are not necessarily building based or service based options, and thinking more creatively about how we commission and deliver and scale up that type of provision. So I think there are lots of examples of good practice in the UK and indeed in other areas of the world around hospitality and social tourism, access to arts and leisure facilities, and looking at those more kind of diverse and innovative break options, I think is really important. Maria, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, well, certainly through my interview work, it was sort of, there's definitely a cultural shift moving away from those sort of traditional institutionalized break services. And many staff reflected upon more small caring networks, which really drew upon local resources and assets. So it was looking very much at what the community could support. And a number of these more personalized models were working with what the community had to offer, and also the landscape. So particularly in regions in Wales, it was engaging more with the environment and some of the local services in the area, which could support people in a more flexible and localized way. So it was moving away from more institutionalized to more focusing on sort of small caring networks within the community.
Great, thank you, Maria. Any other questions or comments from any of the participants? Quiet group today. I'm wondering if you guys could speak a little bit. You alluded to, like, Maria, your survey or your study was pre-COVID, talking a little bit about how COVID has impacted some of this work, and potentially the need to be even more creative and flexible in personalizing respite services. So wondering if you have any thoughts on that from your work or future work.
Maria?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how breaks have been supported during the last couple of months, which has of course been very challenging, and particularly for older carers who are more vulnerable as well. I've spoken to a few charities across Wales who have tried to be more creative in using online resources, so keeping up that communication and supporting people to engage more online, which is not everyone's preference, but also looking at where, again, they can support family and friends, just a select number of family and friends, to almost take over the role where possible of the carer, and just support the carer in having a short time to themselves to find that restorative break that they need. So they're thinking, for example, they had a voucher scheme which they could give out to so a few friends or neighbours who they knew that couple quite well and could support them, rather than thinking about going to a daycare centre or a residential home, which was obviously a bit more challenging during the last couple of months. But it has been extremely challenging. I think one of the main ways has been supporting people over the phone and ensuring people are kept updated with sort of opportunities to engage with groups and support groups online or over the phone. So that was one of the main ways at the moment.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, there are some really innovative online resources, and I'd signpost you to Shared Care Scotland's website, where they have a section called Breaks for Strange Times, where there's some examples of those more innovative options. And also there's a project in Scotland called Outside the Box, which has been providing COVID secure outdoor activities for people living with dementia and their carers. And I know that they're soon to publish a report based on that work. So I'm happy to send you a copy of that. And of course, it is a helpful short break experience during the summertime, but less so perhaps in the winter time.
Great, thank you. I just posted a link to that Shared Care Scotland site for that. There's some really great information and resources there if you haven't checked that out.
Mm-hmm.
Any other, is one question that was posted by JT Kendall in the chat. It says, for these small care networks, are these organically created, or are they still somewhat attached to government or medical institutions?
I would, from the ones that I'm aware of here in Wales, they are organically created, so they're not, they've not been commissioned by a health or local authority. It's more looking at, for example, microcare enterprises. They're often built up from the visions of local communities, and they involve maybe a maximum of 5 people who group together to form a small business and try and look at ways which they can support people on a more one-to-one basis. So a lot of the work around these small communities which are embedded in communities were small networks which were embedded in the community were very much volunteer based, often looking at where former carers could harness their lived experience and their knowledge, and trying to group together people who had similar interests. For example, some of the care cooperatives, again, they looked at finding couples who had similar interests in theatre or going into or spending time outside, and they could use their support budgets to pull together their resources so they had more money to support people doing what they want to do. And that also encourages friendship and reduces sort of social isolation, especially in some rural regions. So yeah, it wasn't orchestrated from a sort of top down. It was very much rooted in trying to identify what outcomes people wanted to achieve, and then looking at how these small models could support them on a more flexible basis, but also over a longer period of time.
That's great. I love the organic nature of that, and how do we find ways to evaluate and upscale that. I think a lot of the best innovative ideas start by people, at the local level, really doing what they feel they need individually and for their own community. And I also love the idea of the care-friendly communities, and I think that's something worth exploring further. I know we have, movements around dementia-friendly communities in the US, at least. I don't know how globally that movement has gone, but I think that's something that perhaps we could get some collaborators together through the Break Exchange to think about how do we develop a framework for care-friendly communities, and also really intrigued about the power of policy and how we can create and advocate for policy that is more flexible to allow for more personalized short break provisions, and lots of great ideas and opportunities. So want to, as we close, continue to remind people to use and leverage the Break Exchange Network, to continue these conversations, to share and learn from and with each other, and find ways to connect so we can continue to build evidence base around respite and ultimately be able to provide the best services with the best outcomes for families. So want to thank our speakers again today. Diane and Maria, this was incredible to hear from you. Thank you for those who are attending live, and for all those who will watch this recording at a later date. Please stay connected to the Break Exchange, and want to thank you for all that you're doing in your own lives to support short break and respite services and remind you to also make sure that you're also taking a break yourself in the middle of this crazy times that we're living in. So take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.